Serious, if you could learn the honest truth behind any rumor or mystery from the course of human history, what secret would you like to unravel? I'd like to read the history of the world volumes that were destroyed at the Library of Alexandria. Edit. Thank you guys. My dad is the one responsible for this comment because I asked him some form this when I was a kid. He's been my history teacher throughout life. Oh my god, yes, I'm so curious about that. It's so depressing thinking about how much information was lost in that fire. I like to know about the thousands of years of undocumented human history. The one thing that fascinates me is how did wandering affect culture? That is, all our modern culture comes from people with borders. They may not be nation states, but pick any direction and you'll either hit a natural obstacle like a mountain, or land controlled by other people. But there was a time when that wasn't true. For a few thousand years, if you didn't like where you were, you could just pack up, walk a few kilometers, and be the first person ever there. How did that affect their mindset? Did they have a god of new places? Did they have people who were specialized in scouting out potential places to move to? Who the Isdal woman really was, what she was doing, how she ended up dead in such a remote valley in Bergen, Norway. No one has been able to identify her in 50 years. Edit. What's especially strange about this case is that she had about 8 different aliases which she used all over Europe and then was found burned alive in the middle of a Norwegian valley. All eyewitness reports from people who crossed paths with her state that she stood out and always seemed to be on high alert. I personally believe the theory of her being a spy. I'd like to know which people were the pedophiles that were involved with Epstein. The good news is Ghislaine Maxwell, who procured and groomed minors for Epstein and his friends, and was involved in all facets of his disgusting operation, has been arrested. She is expected to rat out all the big names in exchange for a more lenient sentence. The identity of the Zodiac Killer, or if the dudes who escaped Alcatraz really survived. The Alcatraz escapees almost certainly made it contrary to popular beliefs. A raft was found, and there were reports of a stolen car in the area. One that was later seen being driven by 3 men, even. The Mary Celeste, I believe that's the name. It was a US merchant ship that was found completely abandoned floating in the ocean in the 1800s. I would also like to find out what happened to another ghost ship that was found with everyone frozen. There was a spilled barrel of alcohol in the ship, the lifeboats were missing, and a rope was trailing behind the ship. What happened is that the alcohol started evaporating, making it hard to breathe, so everyone left their stuff and went out on a lifeboat behind the ship to let it air out. Then the rope snapped and the ship went drifting away from the lifeboat. DB Cooper, the hijacker that jumped from the jet plane with all that money, and what happened from then till now? Removed. The details of the Bronze Age collapse. We only know very generally what happened. Read 1177 by Eric Klein for details, but precious little specifics. ESP, who did what and why. Droughts, famines, revolts, piracy, population movement, trade collapse etc. are all involved. Mycenae, Minoans, Troy, Hittites, Ugarites etc. Every city from Greece to the Levant was burned down, and every civ collapsed. Egypt, Aria, and Babylonia didn't collapse, but were severely weakened for centuries. Yes, and to add to it, who were the sea peoples? Malaysian Airlines Flight 370. Oh my gosh, you should read the article The Atlantic did last year, link below. It's very long, but so worth the read. It goes over what we know, and what the likely scenarios are for what happened. Nothing has ever scared me so much as reading the theory of how it was done. Warning for anyone who clicks the link, there is some seriously scary description of what likely happened on the flight. The Atlantic. No idea why, but I'm just so interested in finding Genghis Khan's grave. The brutal extent they went through to keep it secret is truly messed up. I heard an interesting conspiracy theory once. Perhaps Genghis Khan actually had a simple cremation and the legend of his grand burial was used to keep his empire hungry for conquest and glory. Where the coolness originated from, and why did it spread to so many places? It's kinda weird to me that it's so well known. I know what you are talking about in this fake comment. Where are the missing Sodder children? What happened to Dyatlov Pa? And does the ivory-billed woodpecker still exist? Reading creepy Wikipedia pages about missing children and stuff is not a good thing to DPO before bed. I just want my grandma's recipes. The secret ingredient. Love. What happened to Shelley Miscavige? She just went missing, while the Church of Scientology claims that she's working there. I don't believe it. Same people that believe in Xenu and ducking soul catchers. She's definitely in the hole. Where is all of the missing art and arts is looted during WWII? More than likely. What are the hundreds of locations of the art? Piles of ash in collapsed caves probably. If Caligula made his horse consul, or if he was just messing with the senators in Rome. On a more serious note, the life of Jesus. And also, if Ptolemy was Alexander's illegitimate half-brother. Because that would mean that Cleopatra would be related to Alexander. Edit, the Cleopatra in Egypt around 300 years later. Alexander's full sister was also named Cleopatra. On this note, the degree to which Constantine really believed he'd had a vision that spurred him into Christianity before battle, or if he was consciously bullshitting people because he needed something to pump up morale. What is inside the Vatican secret archives? Probably like 99% boring written accounts and 1% juicy church scandals. Literally every single Unsolved Mysteries episode. That man's face gave me nightmares as a kid. I felt like he had the answers, but just wanted to scare me. Where Cleopatra's tomb is located, and Alexander the Great's. It kills me that I will die without knowing the deep dark shit rich and powerful people, governments, and companies have done. We only hear about what they've gotten caught doing, and there has to be so much more. And what about older wealth before there was any insight into this? What did the Rockefellers do abroad on private islands before the Epsteins existed? Also, all the technology that the Gates, Musk, and Bezos crowd get to see deep in the R&D departments. I mean the Panama Papers came out and no one did chiz about it. Where is the Amber Room? Either I'm stupid or I'm stupid. What's the Amber Room? It isn't actually a rumor or mystery, but I'd like to learn the history behind the legend of Excalibur. Removed. Stonehenge. There are many theories for why it could have been built, but nothing solid. Even more unknown is how in the world those monoliths were moved and stacked. Stonehenge is so cool. I got to see it in 2012, and it was incredible up close. You never said just one. I would probably just go with Amelia Earhart. Or, if this is allowed, discovering the entire ocean, as like 90% of it is unexplored. So if I could have a diagram of everything inside that would be great. Haha, fair enough. There are so many that I want to learn about too. Earhart is a good one. Who was behind Cicada 3301, and what the actual purpose of it was? It just disappeared into thin air. A new cicada puzzle has been around for a while, but it proving extremely difficult to crack. It involves a book of runes. Some pages have been solved using Old Norse runes, but no one's got any farther. Would having the Library of Alexandria live on actually have progressed civilization as much as we speculate it would? I adore reading about it as much as it infuriates me thinking of how much we probably lost. Probably not. The library had burned down several times, and, by the time of its final destruction, had been neglected for centuries, and was a shadow of what it was in its golden era. The death of Marilyn Monroe. Was she killed? Were the Kennedys behind it? Was it drugs? Not necessarily a conspiracy theorist, but it would be really interesting to find out the truth. She was definitely gone before her time. Dorothy Kilgallen, the only reporter who was able to interview Jack Ruby and was supposedly close to a big break in the JFK assassination, also died of an overdose of alcohol and barbiturates in 1965 under suspicious circumstances. I would go back and see how exaggerated are the religious books of all the Abrahamic religions. I would like to see what religious figures were really like and how everybody treated them. Turns out his name was really Jisoo 5. What really happened in Epstein's cell and who was involved? Hopefully Maxwell will spill her guts about the nasty things that have happened. Not literally though. Removed. Who killed John Bernard Ramsey? Deleted. The Voynich manuscript National Geographic. Absolutely. So curious about that. Is it just crazy ramblings? Is it some sort of clever code? Extraterrestrial intelligence. Do they exist? Have they ever been here? How close is the nearest planet with intelligent life? Is faster than light travel possible through the distortion of space or some other means? No one's mentioned Jack the Ripper. I would love to find out who he was just because it would be cool to find out what made him who he was like. Did he have a bad childhood etc? I'm satisfied that it was a disturbed Polish barber named Aaron Kamiński. Blood semen from a souvenir taken by a police officer at the time matches his DNA. That study is now peer reviewed. Kamiński was a suspect at the time. He was in and out of mental institutions, but he was definitely out at the time of the genuine Ripper killings. You may not have heard of him, because at the time of the discovery Ripper fans were so upset about the reveal that they brigaded the Jack the Ripper Wikipedia page, deleting references to Kamiński and forcing the page to be locked. He does appear on other pages, such as Jack the Ripper Suspects. A few. 1. What actually happened to the Somerton man? Who he was, and what he was actually involved in. 2. What happened at the lost colony of Roanoke? 3. Which version of the Great Filter is actually true? Edit. So, I guess Stephen King left a more indelible mark on Roanoke than the actual colonists. Despite speculation, the evidence seems clear to me. Fiction paints a far more interesting picture. Citizens of Roanoke abandoned the colony and assimilated into the local Native American tribe. What happened to Madeleine McCann? There's so many opinions and speculations. It's just recently come back into prominence again with a new suspect announced all over the news. Looking pretty likely that he killed her, but the German police are keeping a lot of the details close to the chest about the investigation and why they think she's dead etc. I'm sure we'll be hearing more about it soon. What's inside Area 51? In terms of permanent fixtures, the answer is likely nothing. Groom Lake / Homey Airport, what we colloquially call Area 51, is too publicly visible to be used as a permanent secure facility for anything genuinely TSC/SAP. In an era of spy satellites and unmanned drones, it would be tactical suicide to utilize such an ubiquitously known military installation in the fashion we tend to fantasize about. In all likelihood, Area 51 operates as one of the following: as a temporary testing facility where experimental technology is shipped in, quickly tested, and shipped out. Nothing remains longer than necessary, and transport of vehicles and other large objects is likely done piecemeal. As a maintenance facility, Groom Lake is only ever used to repair or test nominal upgrades to avowed military technology, such as the F-35, certain drones, etc., or unspec tests to determine if various technology is still within usable parameters. As a genuine decoy, Groom Lake operations have no actual bearing on military R&D and none of the work is real. Rather, the entire point of Area 51 is to intentionally attract the attention of the mainly American public. Little, if anything, can stop a country from launching a spy satellite, but what good is a spy satellite if you don't know where to tell it to look? The more the public focus on Area 51, the less time they'll spend looking for secrets elsewhere. And that means fewer leads for any such spies. Who committed the Black Dahlia murder? Wikipedia. His son did some research into the case and believes it was his father. I can't remember what I watched. I'll post it if I can find it. I would want to know the scientific advancements and knowledge lost with the Aztecs and other advanced Native American civilizations. Also, a true depiction of their cities I'm sure would be incredible too. As a Mexican I can tell you, Aztecs were awesome, but the real deal were the Mayans. This is going to be fucking depressing. My dad passed away last Wednesday. I'm extremely broken up over it. We were tremendously close throughout all of my childhood. But we had a falling out a few years ago that was largely my fault. I haven't talked to him in a year. The only thing I would want to know. Did he die thinking I hated him? Did he die hating me? I love him so fucking much. Even though we had our differences, he is still the greatest man I will ever have known. I need to know. Did he know that? I'm not a dad, but I'm a mom. I can guarantee you, he knew that you loved him. He absolutely did not die hating you. I have differences with all of my kids. I'm stubborn. Fear stubborn. I can go to bed upset at them. I can spend days upset at them as do they towards me. But at the end, there's no doubt that I love them. Whether I'm mad or upset with them, I still love them. I want to know about Otzi and his life. Otzi was a really interesting dude obviously. I find the fact that we can tell that he killed probably 2 different people in the hours before his death and was killed with an arrow to the back I believe. Who knows why though? That's the mystery to me. I've heard conjecture that he was a bandit due to the violent end and the fact that he had weapons on him at the time, as well as fairly high quality equipment for that era from what I remember. But we'll never know who killed him or why. It's just one of those quirks of history. I just need to know why NTF Easter Island even exists. Like y'all were set up on an island with basically no natural resources and y'all just decided to make these huge heads? Like why? I watched a documentary before on TV. Easter Island was once full of palm trees. The locals used the palm trees to move huge stones to create the statues. The statues are the faces of the gods they praise there. Was Kennedy really alienated by the CIA? HMM. Did Coca-Cola really introduce and cancel New Coke just to boost sales of Coke Classic? The conspiracy theory I've seen about that was that New Coke was used as a palate cleanser in America to cover the switch from cane sugar to high fructose corn syrup as the main sweetener. Dyatlov Par incident. 9 Russian hikers died in uncertain circumstances in 1959 and it still hasn't been solved. During the night, something caused them to tear their way out of their tents and flee the campsite, all while inadequately dressed for the heavy snowfall and sub-zero temperatures. Why did they leave? What caused them to run? Did something scare them? Were they scared for their lives? So many questions. Very strange mystery and quite disturbing as well, especially with some of the conspiracies. I read an article some time ago. Apparently it's quite likely that a catabanic wind caused the tent to collapse. In the resulting chaos they were so cold that they undressed, paradoxical undress, and cut open the tent from the inside. They then ran for cover. Some of them died on the way and rest made it into a ditch. They tried to start a fire, but 2 died before it could warm them up, which explains the burns on their bodies. The rest managed to get up some sort of shelter, but it collapsed and killed them. The lack of body parts on some of their remains can be explained by scavengers eating their soft tissues, and the radiation that was apparently discovered on some of their bodies might have been there to begin with. This was Cold War Russia and some of these hikers apparently used to work in jobs relating to radiation. I want to know more about the British Columbia murders from 2019. 2 teenagers killed 3 people and caused a massive manhunt spanning 3 weeks and 3,000 kilometers before killing themselves. I think I heard they made a confessional tape, but I doubt it will ever be published. What on earth was going on in their minds? They were idiot kids who marginally ducked up and then went on the run before realizing their lives were basically over. I followed the story and once I got what was going on I tried to feel bad for them, but they ducking murdered people. Where was Jesus from the ages of 12 to 30 when he is not mentioned in the Bible? Probably living a boring normal life apprenticed to a carpenter. How to make Damascus steel. The real stuff that has been completely lost to history, not the stuff that just goes by its name today. It'd be nice to finally know, not just because we like how the modern stuff looks. It isn't actually lost anymore. Among my FB Bladesmith group, a link has been shared to a writ documentary about the subject. The secret was a certain mix of element from 1 or 2 specific iron mines refined as crucible steel. Said researchers obtained samples from the mines and recreated Woot's accurate Damascus steel. Steel which has the same patterning as historical examples. Will edit with link if I find it. Edit. Link Woot's documentary. Honestly I'd like to simply know the identity of the man who stood up to a goddamn column of tanks during the Tiananmen Square protests of 1989. Alright Xi Jinping. The greatest mystery of them all. Are we in a deterministic universe, or does free will exist? They are mutually exclusive, so it can't be some BS about, well it's both. Nope. then it would be free will, because any deterministic path was created by the last decision in which there was free will. Aliens would come to Earth, just to find out the truth to all those commenting here, that it can be both, and they are not mutually exclusive. I wholly reject compatibilism. I view it as a way for the mind to reconcile the existential crisis that it is confronted with when trying to rationalize these two ideas. If the universe is deterministic, then it makes sense. But then none of my choices matter. But if free will exists, then my choices matter. But then the universe is unpredictable and scary because of the near infinite number of paths it could take simply due to the choices of sentient beings. Basically, does it make sense and nothing matters? Or does it make no sense and everything matters? Compatibilism comes from philosophers who want both the universe to make sense and for their decisions to matter. Logically, it can't be both. If we reduce it to the simplest case in which there is only one true free will binary decision within an otherwise deterministic universe, then the universe is no longer deterministic because it was never predetermined which of the two paths would be chosen. Sure, everything on both sides of the single decision may be deterministic, but only when considering the two halves of this timeline as separate timelines. When considered as a whole, then it is non-deterministic. A deterministic universe relies on cause and effect. The effect is unknown because the decision is unknown, or was unknown until the instant the decision was made. The universe hinges on one act of free will. I think this can be summed up with the idea of a single unbranched line or a branching tree. When looking holistically at a timeline of the universe which is not cyclical or looped, the question is it a straight line, or does it branch? It cannot be an unbranched straight line, and also a tree with branches. It makes no sense, but thank you all for your responses. I love thinking about these things, and all of your responses have been thought-provoking. I appreciate you wonderful contemplative souls. I personally think the most reasonable way of looking at it is how Nordic ideology looks at issues of fate and relog. You're born into a set of circumstances, time, race, culture, place, your surroundings, your DNA, so that, in a sense, is deterministic. However, you have choices of what to do with that within the implied parameters those factors set. It's a matter of degrees of choice, not black and white, have or have not. Are we completely clean slate start from zero free? No. Do we still have choice? Yes. Why did the kamikaze pilots wear helmets? Removed. Not sure if this counts, but I want to know stuff like what Bill Cosby's real thoughts were. Why did he choose the life he did? Why did he have to rape women? How did he live with himself? Tom Cruise also intrigues me, not because he's so provably horrible. I want to know just how shady he is, or if he really is just a super go-getter, and he got where he is just by working hard and impressing people. Either way, I'm curious about what makes him tick, because he's so unrelatable and inscrutable to me. Edit. The Psychology in Seattle podcast has a lot of insight into what potentially could have been Cosby's inner landscape, and what his mindset was. But I'm still curious, because it's all speculation. I want to know what his childhood was like. I wonder why someone like this wanted to specifically be a comedian, to specifically be this amazing fantasy parent for a lot of people, to be a role model. Why was he so conservative? And of course, what was his inner narrative about himself? My best guess was there is some horrible truth he cannot face. Something about women and sexuality makes him feel utterly powerless, that he has a belief that the people he abuses must have something so wrong with them that they are worse than someone who is a rapist. Maybe he tells himself, I can't articulate it, can't compose a coherent justification, but the feeling is so strong it must be true. I don't know at what level he realizes that he hates women, or anyone. I think if he does, it's pretty deep down. Because to even admit to yourself that you don't like someone means that they have some sort of power over you, and that you're not so great that someone could actually get to you. I wonder if he's the kind of person who, if he had the right audience, would admit to what he does. Because that would mean that he feels like what he does is on some level right, but society is not on his level and just wouldn't understand. Or is this something he never ever talked about with anyone? In contrast, known rapist Jimmy Savile. I just see someone who was very psychopathic and people were just toys to him. I read that he used to do wrestling, and he broke most of the bones in his body fighting, and he ducking loved it. I think he has even less shame about what he did than Bill Cosby. He wouldn't care if people knew. He just cares about the consequences of people knowing, and him being put in jail, and losing all his money. However, both of these people had a lot of power, and a lot of what they did was seen as so noble and charitable. They're sociopaths, but why was it important to them to have this lifestyle? They could be in the military somewhere torturing people. Or they could be serial killers. Speaking of serial killers, Ted Bundy. What is it about operating a suicide hotline that appeals to someone who mutilates and murders people? Most rapists don't think that they are rapists. They do not see what they have done as rape. I don't think Bill Cosby, narcissistic a-hole that he is, thinks he actually did anything wrong. I truly want to see what happened to Amelia Earhart that long century ago. What exactly happened, how she died, and how close we were to finding her remains. Did she die in the crash? Did she survive and live on an island until her death or drowned thereafter? How long was she alive? Was she somehow rescued and hid her identity afterward for whatever reason, despite that likely not being the case, and is really just a lame conspiracy theory? What the hell happened to Noonan? There is a theory she died on the island and her body was eaten by coconut crabs, hence why no body was ever found. It may sound insane, but you should Google those crabs. Size of dustbin lids, and will eat anything. There's a few for me. Maura Murray. Where did she go and what happened? I think it's probably that she ran into the forest and died of exposure or succumbed to the element, but her behavior before she disappeared is bizarre. I would like Forlisk to be solved and to know his identity. Where are the Sotter children? What happened to the meter? Thought of another one. Lol. What happened to Asha Degree? Was she lowered out of her home, or was she coerced? I think that Asha Degree was groomed by someone in her community. She didn't use the internet, so someone who was involved in her school or church coerced her into running away from home. It's a strange case too. Her parents were both fine and kind individuals who kept a stable house. She had friends and decent grades. She had a good relationship with her brother. It's so weird to see a young girl leave her house for no good reason and disappear. All of the books ever eaten and destroyed for controversial thought. Roanoke. They were taken by the Croton Indians south from Roanoke Island, Mandya, to the bottom of the barrier island, Hatteras. There are archaeological artifacts and DNA evidence that shows white Europeans were living amongst those people, and Chief Wanchese of Hatteras was known as a peaceful warrior who likely chose to shelter and protect the settlers. Edit. The DNA evidence mentioned in this comment isn't verified. Hopefully soon though. Who shot Biggie? And Pac for that matter? I think it would be pretty cool to learn if Hitler actually killed himself or escaped to somewhere else. It would be that, or what happened to Johnny Gosh. I think it would be interesting to learn what happened to him. I'm not sure if you have seen the image that shows all of the different hairstyles Hitler could have used to disguise himself. It's crazy how unrecognizable one of the most famous faces in the world becomes. After growing a beard, changing hairstyle, and adding some glaze, he easily could have disguised himself as another German soldier. What happens when we die? The people we love miss us. Roswell. I want to know what exactly happened on September 1st, 1969 in that town. Wish I could remember the name of the town off the top of my head. Was it aliens? Did everyone have some weird Mars trip out? Government experiment? Very well orchestrated hoax? What happened and why? Edit. Berkshire County. That's the place. What's in the Vatican? What are the rumors? I would like to find out what was before the Big Bang. I wonder if it's the rubber band hypothesis, the universe stretches out to the point of breaking then collapses and the matter is condensed so tightly it explodes. Or if it's the giant black hole one where it's eaten, collapses, then explodes outward. What the hell happened with the Yuba County 5? It's also known as the American Dyatlov Par BTW. But yeah, so many weird things happened with that are completely unsolved. They only found 4 bodies out of 5 and that 5th person, I don't remember his name, suffered from schizophrenia, so one theory says he killed them and disappeared. The Kennedy Nation. It's driven me nuts ever since I learned about it. There are just so many possibilities. I seem to recall that there are Secret Service records which indicate that he was accidentally shot by said organization during the incident, and that Lyndon Johnson, I think, made some disparaging comment about not wanting the Secret Service around because they might shoot him by accident. Of course, how accidental it was is up to debate, but it does make sense that they would try so hard to cover this monumental duck up, or possibly our nation. The location of the lost 1715 Spanish treasure fleet. I'd use the money to find more lost sea treasures. That, or if the Holy Grail ever existed. What exactly is causing those people to disappear in national parks, etc.? What's in Antarctica? Is Megalodon still alive deep down in the unexplored part of the ocean? What really happened to dinosaurs? Was covered an experiment gone wrong or something released on purpose? For what it's worth, I just love hearing people rationalize their beliefs, and it's intriguing to me to hear different point of views. As much as I wish it was still alive, I feel like we would have some sort of evidence of a Megalodon by now, if it was still swimming around down there. Oak Island Mystery. There is whole TV show evolving around it on History Channel, and mystery if there is buried treasure on it or not. Aren't they finding stuff now? I seem to remember a Viking sword, some treasure/jewels and some tools used to build the trap were found. But still a long way to go. Where is it all at? Have the 7 lives been claimed yet? They won't find Chiz until that happens according to the curse. The lost city of Atlantis. Since I was 5 I've wondered if there was any truth behind it. It did exist, but not how most people think. I watched a really good documentary on it many years ago, and a key detail they mention about it comes down to an incorrect translation. I think it was Plato who was the first to have written down anything about it, and said Atlantis was the size of Libya and Asia. However, that should have been recorded as Atlantis was located between Libya and Asia. So if that mistranslation is true, now you're not looking for a giant continent. You're actually looking for an island in the Mediterranean. Specifically islands between Libya and Asia, the area that's now Turkey, and there was a story with evidence of an island that had some advanced architecture and city planning that was destroyed in a cataclysm of some kind, a volcano eruption I think. That is similar to how Atlantis was supposedly destroyed. Reading through this thread is really interesting. Growing up I got the impression that everything was solved or likely solved. And yet there are all these mysteries that no one knows the answers to. Things like these need to be talked about more. They're so fun to think about. Did Adnan do it? Or was it Jay? What happened in the Best Buy parking lot? Quite a few things. Who killed John Bennett? What happened to Malaysian Flight 370? What really happened to Jimmy Hoffa? What happened to Amelia Earhart? Do aliens exist? Who really ordered the hit on Malcolm X? Who actually killed Biggie and Tupac? And who is Becky with the good hair? There is strong evidence that the pilot of Malaysian Flight 370 killed all of the passengers, killed himself, and crashed the plane in the ocean. There are a bunch of resources online. Really fascinating story. What in the actual duck was going on in the Winchester house? Nothing. Spiritualism and table rapping was a fad back then. Did Carol really feed her husband to the tigers? On a more serious note though, I would also really love to know what's the deal with the Toynbee tiles. Pretty sure someone found the guy. He was very private and mostly just kind of a nutball who liked making weird art. He had a cute out in the floor of his car, so he could apply them to the street without being seen. There was a documentary about it on Netflix I think. The maximum headroom thing for sure. I believe there was a thread here on Reddit where some guy said he knew the people behind it, but it turned out he was mistaken. Could just be some dude trying to creep people out with skills and technology. Dead serious about this, but it's more personal than global. I would absolutely love to know where the hell the lids from Tupperware go. Over the years, we have disposed of dozens of perfectly good containers because the lids simply vanish. Is what we know as history really true? What are the major historical events that have been erased or hidden from us? This is a good one. So many things in history happen because that's how one dude reported it. Tokyo Airport, 1956. A man came into the airport with a weird looking passport, and in it said that he was from the United Kingdom of Tord, which he claimed was located at the border of France and Spain, which is today's Andorra, but this man claims it's the United Kingdom of Tord. The police take him away to a nearby hotel to guard him. They were awake all night in front of his room and went in morning to go check on the man, and he was nowhere to be seen. And the scariest part, all his documents also vanished. Might not seem that scary, but they were in a completely different place. I want to know where he came from and where he went. Haneda Airport employees should not have a high level of French, Spanish, and much less Catalan. In most versions of this story that circulate on the internet, it is explained that its protagonist spoke several languages. According to the University of California graduate, employees were able to create, as in the game, paraphrase in their ears and see its evolution until it reaches the last member of a chain, the term Tord from Teddy Andorra. The Legend of Spring-Heeled Jack, from London during the Industrial Revolution. The Mothman of Point Pleasant, West Virginia. The full story of what happened to everyone in the Dyatlov Par incident. Where is the Ark of the Covenant and what's in it? Alternatively, how do we read the Pictish stones? Allegedly, there's a church in Ethiopia that claims that they it, but can't ever show it to anyone thanks to the Ark's instant curse shenanigans. Edit. While this post does sound like a joke, the Church of Our Lady Mary of Zion in the city of Axum claims to have it in their treasury. Removed. Oh my, you watched until the end? That's fucking awesome, dude. Thanks for watching.